We just waiting a second, checking if anyone's gonna join. But either way, as we know, I usually go live because it's easier. I don't have to edit anything. I don't have to upload anything, and somehow it works better with the flaky bandwidth I've got when it comes to uploading. Um, get a job. Take a day. The good old story of go get some education and get a job. Get a job. Yeah, where to begin? Probably just at the beginning itself, for my own, of course. So, school itself, let's say. Uh, I finished high school, so it was basically half of it was IT, the other half was telecommunications. Later on, tried to go and study further IT and computer sciences at the university. But, you know, even though life in countries like Slovenia is generally cheaper than the rest of the world, at that time, access to internet was definitely still not as easy as like having it today, as you have it in your pocket and unlimited bandwidth and you can do what you want. So let's say, imagine doing online business at that point was not so accessible to just everyone. That's one. And then at 17, basically, I left my the safety of my own home, if you could call it safety. It was safe with regards to that you know nothing will happen to you, but my mental health was definitely not doing okay over there. So yeah, I left home, dropped out of school, but not with an intention to stay a dropout. I definitely wanted to study and finish some studies. For at the end of the day, I was already at that point a lot more aimed at helping people. So if I could roll things back and go and do what I really wanted, then it would be definitely studying psychology or neuroscience, probably at the end of it. So going on the streets basically for, I think it was about just summertime. So what I did immediately was try to reapply to back to high school, but not the same as before. So that makes it a bit challenging. And it was considered the best computer science school, high school in Slovenia. So the criteria to get accepted, even though I was far better than needed, especially for the transition between the years, they did not want to accept me the first year because they understood that I'm living on my own without parental supervision and all that kind of stuff. So, and also given that my image was not exactly, a shirt and pants, but punk rock, a bit different, let's say, they decided not to accept me, of course. So what I basically immediately did went to the social services that were already kind of involved with my family in the past, and asked them to help me out. So yeah, I did join a program for dropouts, which was loads of fun. I learned how to do photography. I learned how to use the sewing machines. I learned how to print T-shirts with 4 different colors and really proper industrial methods of printing them. So then, yeah, it was just loads of projects we did basically throughout the year, and they also teach you a little bit better how to function within the society with regards to formalities, bureaucracy, all of this kind of stuff. Because at the end of the day, in countries which are heavily bureaucratic, to have some formal, we called it formal, I would say probably better term in English would be official literacy. So this is where it's not about reading books and how well you can articulate yourself and how well you can speak, but it's more about how well you handle your taxes, your personal finances, know how to archive your documents, which at that point clearly digitizing documents was still a no freaking go. Everything had to be on the paper, and you had to save the papers for 5 to 7 years generally, or even more. So it was just ridiculous, basically, for a teenager at that point to try and take care of all of that on your own. I mean, at the end of the day, just cleaning the room and washing your clothes and making your own food and taking a daily shower and reminding yourself to just generally be like, well, try to be like everyone else, is the life you need to go for. Now, looking back at that, trying to be like everyone else, I mean, it's just such a ridiculous idea. And I knew it back then, of course, as well. I mean, looking back, yeah, when I was 17 and then later ended up on the national TV, like I said, just because of the situation in itself, of course, and around the media. So clearly, this phrase, get a job, was something that, because, when you live on the streets, especially as a kid, clearly some of us tried. Sorry, something just dropped in my eye. Some of us tried begging for money also. And I can tell you, it felt. The words to describe this felt rather. I mean, the words in itself to describe the feeling are too uncomfortable to speak here. But the catch is that begging for money was never something I really liked. So even though, let's say, in the past year I had to borrow, I had to set up a GoFundMe to basically just do whatever was possible to survive. And it feels horrible and terrible, being in debt and all this kind of stuff. It's just definitely not the life I want to live and imagine at any point anyway. Now, so going back to my 17, what did I do? At the end of the day, by the time I reached 18, so before the end of the summer, I was accepted to that school. But I think it took about 2 semesters, so that's about 6 out of the 9 months we usually spend at school, a total. I understood that because there was a huge pressure from the management of the school, their psychologist advisor and teachers and stuff, as well as my circumstances, and one of them being almost killed by a couple of neo-Nazi skinheads, definitely contributed to my attendance in school for over a month, of course. So that was also an issue. So it was clear that I'm not going to pass the year, even though I was totally capable. But, like, for example, I was one of the most talented kids in mathematics. Let's say I would probably say top 50 in Slovenia. Although I didn't go as far as competing on the national level, but I know I was one of the top 3 in the whole school of 1,000 students where I was in primary school. So it was just to be failing maths classes in the kind of school I actually enjoyed learning. It was incredible, just not possible. So we all knew that there was something not all right with the way the classes were approached by the professor. So that was fine with us. So anyway, I knew that I was not gonna pass that year. So immediately I focused on switching the schools to whichever school would be still taking me, and I can actually take it on myself. So that turned out to be the telecommunications in the end, and to their own admittance in the fact that that was another 2 years then. During those 2 years, I actually attended the school, being signed up as a regular student, but I attended the afternoon classes and the evening classes for the most part. And I was working a job for those 2 years, and this was a three shifts job. It was an IT company with a big network of the machines that were inside the healthcare centers, basically just there to validate the cards, the healthcare status, and healthcare insurance status for the people that were there. So we were managing that IT network, and there was some other stuff. So I was working there basically for 2 years. I was working a job and going to school at the same time. Then later on, the company had to change. I also, after 2 years of doing three shifts, from 6 o'clock in the morning till 2 p.m., and then the next shift was 2 p.m. from to 10, and sometimes also over the nights when we had the system updates, which was really really hard, and the longest one lasted 36 hours continuously, for example. So yeah, those were first few jobs. Before that, of course, I also worked already a couple of years, all sorts of different summer jobs where I learned how to clean the construction yard machines. Just like some of the jobs were just dirty as hell. So it was difficult, really. But at the end of the day, you do what you got to do, right, to build your life. So I would say most of the time it was really going fine. But yeah, for example, back in Slovenia, that's over 20 years ago, there was still a mentality that once you get a job, like, I mean, not the summer job, but job, you gotta keep it for a minimum of 2 years. And getting jobs with not that much of experience on your paper was also going to be really difficult. So yeah, either way, and living in a squad, having been known a little bit, quite a little bit in the media, to be at least very different type of a person than the society would expect you how to be and how to act and how to live there, pretty certainly contributed a lot to who decided to hire me and who decided not to hire me. So all the other jobs I got later on were basically through connections. If I was sending applications, it didn't really matter whether I was qualified, overqualified, or underqualified. Whenever I was sending applications back then, most of the time it would be a rejection, because at the end of the day, they kind of know you, even though back then it was mainly through the local media and stuff like that. There was no social media yet. They kind of know you, they know who you are, they know what you do and how you think and how you live. And they also always need, as they say, more experienced people. So that was going on. I mean, I was still working continuously up until the age of 24, I think, where things got a little bit different. But I was then working as an assistant for like the youth of the political party in Slovenia, which was kind of like a part-time job, so it wasn't enough. And then twice a week at night, I would be working as some kind of like a bouncer in a nightclub, or basically more like a punk rock club that had all sorts of events, in a half-legalized squat version, in Slovenia, which is still very active, really known. Just the place got quite different during the daytime than it was back then. But like that was pretty much it. So that was going on until up till 26 when my son was born. And at that point, I was working in the meantime, kind of like a year, I think, also for an internet service company in the help desk. That was loads of funny stories from there. And I still keep some friends from that job as well. So that's kind of okay. I mean, some of the jobs really developed. Let's say this first IT job that I was working for 2 years, I still occasionally contact my boss from back then. I would never call him a boss. He was one of the best people's manager and team leaders I've ever had in my life. Basically, an ex-officer in the army, the really warmest guy I've ever met in my life. He was like kind of the dad I always needed in my life, and he was the best guy really. And I still occasionally speak with him. Just he lives a happy life, very simple, very uh, keeps to himself. I mean, but he's an amazing dude. I always really reminded myself whenever I had a shitty job or a good job, I always reminded myself of him as knowing what kind of example of leadership I want to either work with or just kind of example of the leader that I would be in a job, in a leadership position for a job. And then basically I also did take that as an inspiration to myself whenever I was put into a position of team lead, even though with multicultural situations it does get a little bit more challenging than that. You don't speak the same language, people will misunderstand you because they interpret English in their own language, and that just gets lost in translations. So yeah, get a job. Yeah. So by the age of 26, I already had so close to 9 years of working experience. And then I got a job for the first time in the media industry. That was IT support to begin with. And I think it was just about 6 months down the road. Um, One of the procurement officers, which means he's like in between the engineers and the departments and the project managers and stuff like that, that work for the technological and the media department inside the TV, the commercial TV station. And then just below the chief technical officer. So he was kind of like the guy, funny guy with the helmet and the baseball bat in his office, who would be buying a lot of equipment or just looking for demos for the technical equipment for the TV station and the broadcast systems and stuff like that. And whenever the vendors would come there with their offers, he would give them a helmet to put on their head, took that baseball bat, sat on a big chair. Like he really knew how to do all this nonverbal communication and dominance. He had these big placards and certificates of negotiation skills certificates he acquired in his life. And I mean, he was a great guy to know and to talk with. So yeah, he grabbed that baseball bat and told them, name your price. I mean, we always got the best prices, I gotta tell you. And I kid you not, these were people coming from all over the world, like LG and Philips and stuff, best engineers and stuff I've seen in my life at that point from Korea, and they were just pissing their pants in front of him. It was great. So that job, IT support, later turned out because of this guy wanting to do, like, he always wanted to use me most for whatever he needed to plug in, to test and stuff, but it was related only to IT at that point. He always wanted to use me. So he had already relationships with other employees who were there in IT department, who were there longer than I was, but he just somehow really took a liking to me. So this guy eventually calls my boss in the IT cubicles, and I hear my boss talking. Something was definitely going on about my name, and he really gets... I've never seen that guy being so angry, because he would be quite like... We live in a culture where expressing yourself in your full potential and spectrum is just fine. It's okay. I mean, as long as you're not being a complete a-hole to all the people around you, yeah, you have your moment, you have your 5 minutes. We all know, we all forget that and forgive that shit. It's okay. So he got really, really angry, slams down the phone and just goes, I always keep losing the best guys. And I felt so not proud, but quite the opposite. I felt so humiliated because within 6 months or so, he calls me the best guy without me being aware at his worst moment. This is basically how most of the working culture in Slovenia works, even to this day. It's a very it's really kind of the mobbing mentality is just way too normalized over there. Abuse at work is just freaking eat it for breakfast, man. And yeah, he just looks at me and he says, "Get the f out." I'm like, what did I do? What have I done that to deserve, you know, being abused and complimented like never before in my like in these 8 to 9 years of work in my life before, except for my first boss before. It was like he says, "Yeah, well, they want you. You have just been promoted into the engineering department. Please pack your shit and go." Like, okay, I mean, what can I do? If it comes from the top, it comes from the top. So that's how I started to learn what's what's HD, what's video and stuff. And finally, it started to click in my head. Oh, look, that's all that boring stuff I was learning at the telecommunications school just to finally get a paper, get the education, and get the job. I mean, it was cool because finally it wasn't this boring, same old IT where you have to support people who honestly, I mean, it's not about whether you're technical or not. But if you're wearing, I'll give you a real good example. If you're wearing high heels, you're a journalist, you have that workstation on the floor next to you, you came tired, you stretched your legs, and suddenly your mouse is not working just when you stretch your legs. I mean, I understand you do go and call your IT guy first because you haven't had your second coffee in the morning yet, and your brain's still not fully functioning and you need help. That's fine. That's why we're there. We're there to support you, right? And she goes and says, "My mouse is not working." Okay, I get it. Have you checked if it's plugged in? And, other stuff that you can check by yourself, basically. I don't remember exactly what I said, but clearly this is our standard procedure. Did you reboot your PC? Did you check that all the cables are connected? And I honestly swear, I promise, this woman started screaming at me, which the team lead of our department later definitely corrected with her because he would not ever treat us like slaves, and he was our boss. She was like, "You work for me and you need to get your ass over here and fix this for me right now." So I'm like, "Okay, fine. I'm over there right now in a minute." Told my boss, of course, on my way down exactly how she behaved and what she said. He just told me the same thing. "Please come back. Don't say a thing. Come back and tell me what was wrong." Cool. So I came there. Clearly, what was wrong, as you can already imagine, the cable was unplugged because of her high heels, which pushed the cable out when she stretched her legs, drinking her second coffee. So, it's fine. I came back to my boss. I told him what's going on, and he literally picked up the phone and yelled at her for me himself. So we had a good team. I must say, a lot of my career was really fun because I was working with great people, like great engineers, great leaders, maybe just great projects I really enjoyed, or solving some big issues, or reinventing some of the broadcast technologies in a way that it's made a small company a big superstar, but they never rewarded me for it. So yeah, go get a job. So, I really had fun either way. So this is when I got promoted to engineering. I finally started working in something I had a lot more fun working with, which was video domain, because there was so much to learn. You can build a studio. There's one, that's so much to learn just about building the studio. How to wire the power, the lights, the cameras, which lenses to pick, everything. I mean, the teleprompters, and it's just crazy how many things go into that. Not to even mention, that's just the video. Video always comes with the sound, right? Otherwise, it's not. It's just a silent video. sound and video, they always mix in two separate channels. So somehow you have to get that combined. Clearly what happens, video and sound are not always going to be on the same sync. They're not going to be at the same time. So you got to embed that together and sync it and all of these things. I mean, this is a ton of cabling machinery and just science behind all of this and making it. And video that comes from the camera, the amount of data that creates just to put it on the hard disk, because it's such a high quality even back then, is huge. And then broadcast that over the air. When it was analog, yeah, clearly you had one channel, and that one channel had one TV station. So when the digital TV came, that one channel was able to compress 8 TV stations into it. So if that tells you what kind of magic we were basically creating, the video you're watching right now, you're actually receiving less than 1% of actual data that was combined to create 24 or 30 frames per second. It's actually just an illusion, what you're seeing over there. And that's what I know as a professional, what I've learned back then. So this is the real fun part that I was learning, and how to build all of this stuff, how to build the broadcast systems which take signal over the air, signal over the cable, signal over the internet, like IPTV or streaming like now, or signal over the satellite. And that's just not any, that's, video or these kind of signals, it start to figure out that's basically just all telecommunications in a broad range. So finally I felt myself useful. I got some kind of education, wasn't really enjoying it that much because, like I said at the beginning here, I really wanted to help people study psychology and do stuff, figure out how we work, how the universe works, and kind of this kind of stuff. I was always way more interested. But having said that, I pushed through the stuff that I didn't like to satisfy the society and their expectations towards me, the people pleaser, shit that sucks. So yeah, and then I finally started to see the fun in doing all that. Finally, it took me pretty much 10 years, and definitely a birth of my first son back then, because I was perfectly fine living quite a simple life. And the money that I made before and in the meantime, spending it on cool experiences, like going to the mountains, go travel somewhere. Of course, I couldn't go really far with that little money, but thanks God, Slovenia is very small and it's really beautiful. So you can go pretty much within 2 hours, you can go to mountains, or you can go to the seaside, or you can go to ancient forests and just get lost in there and eaten by a bear. So, there's much to do and many risks to be taken, yeah? So I did what I could with that little budget. But then a child's born, and suddenly I became a lot more ambitious. Why? Because I understood, if I want this child to have, let's say, good education, good life, a good parent, and all of these kind of things, I've got to set my fundamentals right, which obviously always wanted to get my fundamentals right first and then build a family. I wasn't such a stupid young kid doing only the stupid stuff. No, I was doing actually a lot of good things. And even at the time when I needed help as well, I was already helping a lot of other people, changing their lives around by being on the media and stuff and sharing my story. And I literally changed the laws and the politics on the national level, which literally saved lives of the homeless people over there. And then consequentially, because other suckers in Europe saw, oh, look, this is actually a really good idea, they adopted it later on around the Europe. So the solution was, if somebody was homeless, they had no paper whatsoever, they couldn't register anywhere, so they couldn't, literally, you just didn't exist in the system. That's how things worked prior to about 2008, 2009. And my idea was to basically just allow people to register at, local municipalities or social services. So they said, it's actually not bad, and they did it. To a certain extent, most of the countries, they just suck at actually implementing it correctly the way I wanted, the way I imagined it. But either way, they do it, you can kind of save your ass, let's put it that way. But, so And I also had fun. After the son was born, it was really full on dedication. Like, even my friends said, you became such an ass. Like, you don't go out as much, you don't do as much. I mean, you're just like work, home, work, home, work, home. But look, every smile, every hug, every funny thing the little dude said already at the age of 2 or even before, it was a reward in itself. I never really felt like I'm losing anything because I gained so much more. But of course, there are certain sacrifices, and I was happy to deal with them in order to have a happy life with myself, with my family, and so on. Just it didn't work out. Communication, clearly on my side, communication skills cannot be that broken. They never were. So, and yeah, there was a proposal to my partner at that time, before we separate and before we go down this route, please, let's go and find some couples therapy and help, because clearly it must work. People that do that, they stay together, or at least they know why they separated when they do. And it's for the benefit of our child, so we know how to handle this situation in the future as well. Clearly the answer was no, and I had to process that in really painful way. Later also, when we finally reached the court to settle for the divorce and stuff, I mean, I literally had to say in the courtroom, I'll never forget those words, and if I now just translate how I said it, it was like, Your Honor, I definitely don't agree with anything that was said here. However, for the sake of just getting on with it and getting it done, I'd like to say, please note in the records what I just said. Yeah, that, and I think she even asked, what do you mean? Is it true or not true? I said I will not comment on that, but I just don't agree with everything that was said, and I want that to go into the record, but I want this process to be finished today. So the fact was, my ex-wife at that point, was making up some stuff about the facts, how we lived together and who left who and stuff like that. So it kind of put a black spot on me, really, really dark spot on me. But I would not have any other consequences because of this, other than I'd have to provide for the alimonies, regardless of how much money I make. Only that I had to provide the minimum, of course, as decided by the court. I could do more if I wanted to, and occasionally when I could afford, I did that. So yeah, that was the point when I crashed and burned at the age of 29. The whole situation with this divorce and stuff, just, it was hard enough. I think it took me about 6 to 9 months to finally start feeling normal. So it's kind of the same as now, but this was, now it seems to be faster because I was now in a relationship for almost 9 years. So yeah, after the divorce, then I realized I've had enough of like this unprofessional way of working, where you have to really expand and extend what you do in any kind of work, any job. If you're an IT guy, you're gonna also end up cooking coffee for your bosses and shit, and sucking up to them. I mean, because like I said, abuse generally in the culture of the Balkans is just way too normalized. It's like a bread and butter for your breakfast if you live here in Netherlands, or I mean whatever. It's like, it's just really daily. And when you live that way with such a society and such families and stuff, you just don't see it until you finally get out. So getting out was kind of the idea. I always wanted to go out, basically see the world, travel a bit and stuff, but with no cash and being too attached to whatever security I could have in my life, which now I see how much that actually created, like my own blockages and stuff. It was really like, what do I do now? And I tried and I tried. I think it was a total of 6 months and sending for sure like about 3 to 4 applications every week across the world. So it was everywhere: Netherlands, UK, France, I think as well, USA, Singapore. So these were kind of the countries I was picking. Where do I want to go to start working abroad? Because telecommunications industry and the skills I've acquired, and I've also proven to myself that I have like this amazing talent. I can learn anything within like matter of minutes, hours, days. So like I just figured I'm gonna use this. I'm gonna do something good out of my life, but I cannot do it here in this little country with 2 million people who don't, yeah, well, whose national sport is just basically being hugely envious against each other and always being somewhat of a hole. So I just couldn't do it anymore. And I figured if I'm gonna be able to provide for myself and my son and do better in life, I gotta get out. And it was hard, really, really hard decision, because leaving family behind, and I'm not talking just about my kid, I'm talking about 2 sisters, my mom, my cousins, everyone I really cared about, my best friends, you know, like the animals that I loved, like not necessarily my pets, like the dogs of my friends. I mean, they loved me and I adored those dogs. Uh, it was the hardest decision to go and just leave, to just pack and go. And the hardest part was sending so many applications and not getting any answers at all. So I also won't forget that breakthrough is like, how do you get a job from a place where you live? You don't speak the language, it's never going to give you a good chance, because you have the kind of name that is hard to pronounce. You live in a country nobody knows it exists, and you're competing with at least a few hundreds, if not thousands, of other candidates from all over the world for the same job, where most of them probably have a lot better experience and competence than you have. So what's going to get you there? Good question. Really, thanks God, I always kind of acted more based on intuition than anything else. Because if I was analyzing back then the way I just did it now, I probably would have never made a decision to go, because I was already scared enough to go anyway. You know, it's big, it's dangerous. The world is dangerous. So after 6 months of trying, and it was just around a time of the year like now, it was just around well, maybe more towards the end of January. So I don't know, I reached the point of being 29. So yeah, it was the end of January. And then I finally broke through. So there were these couple of jobs for a test engineer in UK constantly popping up on the feed that was LinkedIn. And I understood they haven't fulfilled the role. For the past 3 months, they haven't found someone they can actually hire. Within 3 months, they should be able to find someone. So I put pressure. And what I did was emailed 3 of those agents posting exactly the same for the same job. Some would tell you for exactly which company it is, and some would not tell you much, but the keywords were the same, the text was the same, the job description was the same. But you never knew. At that point, nobody ever wanted to reveal how much money you make until you're actually there discussing the contract already. So I wrote all 3 of them and put them in the BCC field, which means they couldn't see that I wrote to all 3 of them at once, and simply said that I'll give them another 3 working days to take their 15 minutes of their precious time to finally open my CV and read it, because I know I'm a perfect guy for that role, but they have been skipping it for the past 3 months. And how I'm aware of this is because they still haven't fulfilled that role. And they are becoming desperate. So here you go, sir. You have another 3 days, working days to call me, and if you don't, you can rest assured I will never reach out to you again. Boom. Hour and a half later, I get a phone call, and 3 weeks later, I'm pretty much burning all my stuff, flying to UK with a paid flight ticket. So everything paid except for accommodation. So they didn't offer me any relocation packages, which I later learned would be a standard procedure even for a freelancer sometimes. But okay, they paid for the flight, they paid for everything so I could get there. And I had to borrow some cash to actually pay for the deposit and the rent with the colleague that I moved in. So they also were good enough to take care of finding me an accommodation with one of the co-workers so we could share a ride and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, cool. The beginning of a new life was great. Yeah, I basically flew to UK, moving to a new place, new country for the first time, first job abroad, and it was great. So the first realization was like my cost of living at that point, even though obviously I had to share a house, but also I had to share a house in Slovenia with my partner or later with another housemate anyway. It was pretty much very close to what I was paying back in Slovenia, but I made more money. So it was just a new level of experience in life. Like, suddenly you love going to work because it's worth it and it pays well and it's not difficult. And you only have to do those 7 to 8 hours every day, and then you're literally told to go home. Nobody is asking you to stay overtime and do something you don't have to do or want to do. Your job's done, go home. That's it. No more discussions. I mean, it was great. The only problem was 6 months later, I learned I did not really fit into the mindset. Back then, they said, I would say culture, but now I see it was more just the mindset of the people over there. Because I was ambitious when they were asking me, where do you see in yourself in the next 5 years? Yeah, somewhere traveling around the world, being an architect and the main engineer of these systems, because it's a lot to learn, but I see it's easy for me. And I understood later on, so the sixth month in the job, I understood that my colleagues never said anything about it, but they really didn't like that stuff. Because why? They were working at that job for like 5 to 10 years already. They saw a new guy who just joined, and he's already telling them how within 5 years he's gonna be like one of those engineers they all look up to. I'm like, I mean, sorry, it's not really that difficult. Yes, it's possible. So I was actually sacked on the basis of being too arrogant. Like, wow, I couldn't understand. So I did everything I was told to do, but I still got let go because I'm too arrogant. Even though I'm new to the UK, new to the British culture, and new to how they think, how they act, how they do stuff, and how they communicate with each other. So okay, shit. And then I get a phone call from the same agent that got me hired there, and he says, well, you just ruined my reputation with this company. And I'm like, excuse me, what did I do? Please explain, what does it mean being too arrogant? I want to understand what just happened here. He was first really acting emotional and upset, but I told him, do you understand that after 29 years of living, I've left my son behind, my family, my friends, everything. I came here, became happy that I got this job. I did everything I was told to do, but I don't understand why I'm right here now at the pub, drinking beer, crying, and thinking my life is just utterly destroyed because of something I don't understand. Help me out. And if you can prove me that I did something wrong, I'm gonna pack my bags and I'm gonna go back, and that's it. We're not speaking to each other anymore. The guy calls me back. I think it was a day and a half later. Calls me back and says, "Okay, I understand I was thinking about it, what you said, blah blah blah. I understand, and you're right. Something, it wasn't really just on you, and it's not okay. So I'm willing to help you out. I'm like, wow, that's a nice turnaround. So funny enough, turns out he actually, yeah, did help a lot. So a week later, I had a contract in my hands from a company that I really wanted to work for. Like a year ago, I made a wish. I want to work here because it's great. You get paid to travel, you build the systems, you're the engineer. After a couple of years or less, if you're good, you become an independent lead engineer on the projects and stuff, and it's just freaking fun. And the people are really okay to work with. You know, this is what I saw when I was sent there for a training to that company a year before. So I got the job exactly where I wanted to be. My wish came true. And to laugh in the face of the manager and the colleagues who just got me sacked the week before, this was exactly the job that they were so thinking, saying that I was so arrogant about accomplishing. Yeah, I was assigned first in Denmark to sit next to one of the best engineers in on within that time, and learn from him on another broadcast project. So we were upgrading the TV systems for the one of the biggest Denmark's operators, from MPEG 2 to MPEG 4. It was really fun to work because for the first time I've seen there someone tell the client at some point to please get the F out of my face. Literally the word was used, get the F out of my face, I need to get the job done. So the clients were a bit annoying because they were off above our shoulders the whole time, literally over the night sometimes, trying to tell us how to do our job, which had quite a few challenges because of the bugs and the system. There were two different systems from two different vendors, and there were serious compatibility issues at that point. So we had to work around that stuff, and it was really not easy. Well, I've learned a lot from that guy, and 3 months later, I was already working on all the projects alone. So that's when I traveled to Africa, traveled to other places. Really fun, fun, fun. So yeah, ultimately, looking at everything. So yeah, again, we go get a job, get this, get this. Was it good? Yeah. Did I get paid well? Yes, definitely. Did I end up making even more money later and having better challenges and better career and better life that I could pay for myself? Definitely. I did. I did all of that, for sure. But ultimately, at the end of the day, when I look back, I spent 25 years, well, out of the 25 years, more than 25 years working, about 20 years working in an industry I really didn't like. The media broadcast industry, that's like the news channels and the Discovery and all this kind of stuff. I mean, ultimately learning that they are not working for humanity and they're not giving any of us any really significant value. It was like working for the devil himself. I think there were other videos before when I was talking about this. There's at least the video where I explain why I actually decided to quit this career, to quit the six-figure jobs and stuff. Why? Burnout, stress, politics. And I mean literal politics. Like, if something happens out in the world that influences the way we think and the society and stuff, for example, the lockdowns, the masks and stuff like that, everyone has to behave exactly like they say. That's it. Or you get a boot. So, like, yeah, even before 2020 happened, I already understood that working in the media itself for 20 years was making me, even though I was making good money, I had a great career, great job, and I obviously achieved a lot more than I ever imagined, I was simply not happy. And I'm not happy because, my wife was abusive and stuff. No, I was just simply stressed and burnt out also because of myself. I understood that I'm working for something I really don't like. I, Even though I loved my job and I really loved what I was doing because I was one of the best in, at least in Europe, I still never found myself. Well, at that point, I didn't find myself anymore. That was not me. And that was the fact. Go get a job, go this. Like, I bet my money that large majority of people end up feeling exactly the same. But what I did decide to do is to ignore all of that or deny it or whatever, take the pills, whatever it is. I don't know how people manage to live like that. I don't. But for myself, I started to feel literally dead inside. This was not a life for me anymore. No, anymore. To work, everything I worked was literally working in the systems like that were working either for military or for the government or for the media industry. And it was like, what am I doing? I'm literally just giving all my time, all myself, all my attention, the best of myself, away to the entities that actually just keep us always suppressed, down, enslaved, and working for scraps. Oh, yeah, we pay you a lot of money to be our slave, but you're still our slave. That was the whole catch. And I just understood, look, I knew myself, whether I wanted or not to admit that I want something different out of my life and I want to be there with the people and for the people. It was just ultimately a lot more important to me, and I couldn't escape that feeling anymore. Never mind what I did. I could, take drugs, take the pills, use whatever you want. You will never escape who you really are. At the end of the day, it always catches up onto you. If you look at the book and the research that some of the great people were doing, what are the top 5 regrets of the people when they're dying? Not being yourself, not spending more time with the loved ones and your friends, not doing what you want, not traveling more, and just simply not experiencing life. That's what it is. That's what it means. Go get a job. I like working. I'm not a lazy person. I love to do stuff. I love to create. I love to learn. I love to explore. I love to do all of these things. But if it's not rewarding, not me, and not others either, it's not serving me and it's not serving anyone else, what is it then? It's only a mind trap for all of us to continue making other people rich and building their freedom while we sell our attention and our time for just enough to get by. Because when you earn more money in life, why do you do it? Yeah, because you have more kids. You need more stuff. Did I want to have like 10,000 euros per month just to piss it away? No. I wanted to be a good provider. And I did that. I achieved that for sure. But the breaking point was realizing that while doing that, I am ultimately sacrificing everything about who I am. For what? The kind of love that I definitely didn't deserve, if we go just about that. It started to hurt. And it hurt so much that it ultimately felt like there's nothing left. I've had everything, but there was nothing left inside. So, go get a job. Are you happy now? I'm honestly asking people, whoever is watching this and will be watching later on, that hater of mine who said, go get a job, tell me, are you happy with your life, your job, and your education? If you are, happy for you. Freaking proud of you, because that's a huge achievement. But I bet, every time somebody tells me to go get a job, after everything I was doing for myself and tried to do, I tried businesses, I tried investing, all of these things. I simply didn't have the right experience, the right guidance, and the right strategies to be consistent. Not that I wasn't successful, I wasn't consistent and I screwed up. Lessons learned. There's nothing too late to go again. But if anybody tells me go get a job and thinks I wasn't trying, let's say, all these months, I bet my money I've sent over 500 applications over the year. I definitely tried, from fixing fat bikes to fixing other stuff, just, like odd jobs, silly jobs, either for cash or for small payments around, doesn't matter. Had a job in an escape room. Would be really fun if the guy actually put more attention to the health and safety at work as one, which is really important, and then my own health consideration in terms of the fact that my back was injured. I cannot always do all the heavy lifting, so there has to be a good mix between one and another. For 10 euros per hour, I think you're gonna listen to a very experienced 40-year-old engineer when he says, I've had enough of 3 days of breaking my back, give me the electronics you promised I will be working on. Of course, that didn't happen, so I just turned back on my heels and left. I'm nobody's rat. I'm nobody's property and I'm nobody's slave. I've always lived by those principles, and it was hard. I've been hungry many times, but if I didn't do what I wanted to do in that way, I would have never been in positions like before. A technical lead for 10,000 euros a month. And that was after promoted to being a lead. After 6 months, I joined the team, and I was scared of that job. I was scared. I thought I'm so underqualified, so underexperienced. After 20 years of work, I was still scared of a new job. Turns out I was one of the best ever at doing it. What? And why don't I want to go back? Because, like I said, it's working for the entities that are our enemies, enemies of the humanity, put it one way or another. It's not about the 2020 alone. It's not about the COVID alone and the politics around it and the World Economic Forum and all other, whether they are conspiracies or conspiracy theories. I'll tell you, most of them are just the real deal. It's really because of the fact that I was already waking up more than 20 years ago, realizing, as a child already, realizing there is so much more to life and there are things that were not being told. I just felt it. I knew it. Even when my parents were telling me, go get a job, it felt like a complete set of do you even see yourself, what you're saying? Do you even understand where you're coming from? They knew it themselves. They were working hard their lives off. And when the war to Yugoslavia came, everyone lost everything suddenly. Go get a job, right? Security, they say. Come on. I mean, if it works out for someone, hats off to them. But for the large majority, it works out. You end up being old, realizing I've got nothing. And it's not about what you have. You can probably own a house, maybe even a vacation house, couple of cars, possibly even a small sailboat or a bigger one. I don't know. But most of them you had to go really deep into debt and pay off a lot of money to the banks and these rich people to actually own that stuff. What I wanted to always own is good experiences, good life, happiness, fulfillment, and my dreams. That's what I wanted to own, because those are the things you can own and you can actually take together with yourself to your grave. And that's it. Get a job. You know what? I'd be happy for anyone who tells me today, go get a job, go take mine. See you after 20 years. Tell me what you've got. And you know what I'm going to do in the meantime? What I'm just doing. Sharing my story, inspiring people, changing my life around, building my website, go to sail around the world by the end of the year, I guess. Things like that. I know what I want, and how I'm going to get it, I don't know. But I know one thing. Going and getting a job did not get me there. Not everything. It got me to a certain level of where I could touch and smell a sense of freedom. But the way things are changing now, with all the artificial intelligence and everything that's changing, sooner or later, people are going to have to wake up and realize, first of all, financial market is not done with their tornadoes, and it never will be. It's always going like up and then down. So prepare, because that's the consistency you need to keep. You need to prepare for those things. So all of that stuff. And things are still going to happen that are going to rattle and shake up everyone's ways of living, in possibly in ways we don't want to imagine, but that's fine. You know what? Because if you're not willing to learn and adapt, you get left behind. If you're not willing to sacrifice yourself for your own dreams, you get left behind. If you're willing to accept whatever rules of the game, well, not rules of the game, the rules of the game are actually all the same for everyone. But if you're willing to accept other people's rules and think that this is the rule of the game, you're gonna get left behind. People might think, who the hell is this dude living on a small boat that doesn't even work? He lost everything in life and he keeps telling us what is better than getting a job. I know, because I've been there and I've done it. That's precisely why I ended up losing everything, because there are much better ways of building your own life and actually owning it than just a job. Job is just one of the things you can do, but there's more. You know, it's developing hobbies, developing something else, sharing a story, and all this kind of stuff. The opportunities that we have now in the life are never before when I was 20 or 30 or 40. Like, everything is changing in a way that if you know how to see an opportunity for it, then educations and jobs and things like that alone, and following the path of what people were doing 100 years ago, are certainly not the only thing to get you what you really want out of your life, to be happy, to be fulfilled, to be mentally healthy, and to be strong, and to actually be able to support the kids. If people think working one job is now good enough to support the kids, if you don't earn 5,000, 6,000 euros a month, forget it. People all over the world right now, like medical nurses, firefighters, and I'm really talking like essential jobs, people who are saving your own lives, are not able to pay their own bills and buy their own food. And you're going to tell me to go get a job. I'm way more qualified in my own area than most people ever watching this, because there's not going to be that many. I can get a job really easily. Well, turns out not so easy, because at least finally somebody told me, you're really overqualified. We don't know where to put you. Yeah. Means that I can definitely do your job, right? And I need something, right? Clearly, again, your brains would explode if you understand, because I know from both ways. I know how to be an employer, but I also know how to be how to be an employer, but also how to be an employee. I did both things. I had to hire people and fire people, and I had to get hired and stuff like that myself for over 25 years, and I've done a lot of that. So as a freelancer, at least every 2 years, end of the project, let's go somewhere else. Go get a job. Yeah, I did, and I will. But the job, like the jobs that I'm doing now, are working on myself, making plans for whatever I can do and achieve in this year, whether it's realistic enough or not. I don't care. They're my plans. If I succeed, great. If I fail, let's move on. Let's keep pushing. That's it. That's how it works. This is already a full-time job. Enough. A life itself. The only thing is, I'm clearly not one of those people who's gonna leave to satisfy other people's expectations about how to live a life, how to support my kids, what to do to be successful. pretty sure that in a matter of time, it will show up because, the skills that I've got are definitely useful to a lot of people. All I need to do now, and I'm taking these actions slowly, step by step, is build a way with zero budget or zero, not being able to pay the bills, all the bills at the moment. I'm still building my business on top of it and looking for work, obviously, to get income as well, clearly. So I'm doing everything that I can. Just doesn't work the way things worked back then. Even the way things worked before 2020. A lot changed since. But like I said, it's not an obstacle for me. It's actually an opportunity to do things the way I wanted to do them before, because now people are actually seeing the value in that. Working from home, having the skills you can do anywhere in the world, and working for yourself. This is something I've been saying more than 20 years ago, before this was even a reality. My bosses were laughing at me, literally, at 2018 and 2019. They were saying, no, this job cannot be done just working from home. Fact is that offices where we were sitting, we were just using them to remotely connect to everything else. We were actually working from home from that technical perspective. They just wanted to always have you there, your attention, your time, and your body. We own you. If I ever hire anyone, I don't own you. We work together as a team. And if you do more than I ask, you're probably going to have more money than I do from the endeavors we work on together. Call that a job? Nah, it's called a lifestyle. And if I have been a great visionary the way I see it already 20 years ago, knowing what is really going to happen and how, this time I'm going to try and figure out how to put these visions into perspective so I can actually also make something out of it. Before I was doing everything for free, but now times are changing, I'm changing. My job is to figure out how to make my life make me money effortlessly. Thanks for watching, whoever did. I know there wasn't many of you, and I hope in the future there's gonna be more. Well, I wish. Thanks for watching, thanks for the like. Thanks for subscribing, new subscribers, old subscribers, everyone. I really appreciate it, because honestly I never thought that my channel would have any amount of views like that. I know most of it are coming from the shorts, but those that matter to me the most are from you people who keep persistent enough to watch the whole video. I know I talk a lot, but you've got time, you can break it down. I will also do my best to create more digestible, shorter content and do things that you actually enjoy watching. But when I'm sharing my story, I'm sorry, there's a lot to tell, but you can learn a lot because I did, so we'll see. Thanks again. Have a nice rest of the Sunday. Ciao. Love you.